All right, guys. Sorry, I think I finally got everything sussed out on my end. Welcome to another live stream, you guys. Do me a favor. Let me know if you can see my charts clearly. You can hear me and everything. First things first, I did just enter a new short on Fartcoin here. I just wanted to throw that out there right now, very first thing before I even get into discussing the rest of the market. But yeah, hopefully you can all hear me and see everything all good. Thank you all so much for being here with me once again. Nice to see that not everyone's sick of my bearish take yet. All good. Perfect. Yeah, sorry. I had to get a couple last minute things started there and just getting myself sorted with a couple of orders on this. Like I said, just entered a position here. More so looking at a scalp because this is a 1 minute chart, but I noticed something here. I did end up taking a short on this earlier. I've been scalping Fartcoin a little bit. You guys, I want to make this very clear before I even get started in the rest of the video. I'm not trying to turn this channel into a shitcoin channel or anything like that. But just understand that if this market is going to continue to the downside, I'm going to go over both the bullish and bearish scenarios in a couple of minutes here. But if the market does end up going into full-on bear market territory, here's the thing. This market cycle, even in the middle of the bull market, yeah, there was a lot of coins that were doing okay, but it almost felt like a bit of a lottery shoot, a lottery ticket, rather than previous years you could just basically buy anything and hold on to. You almost had to get lucky with the coins. Whereas in a bear market, we know that every meme coin is going to get hammered into the ground. So if we are going to take the bearish scenario with my overall market view, then I don't mind looking at shit coins, meme coins, all that sort of stuff as far as looking for shorts, because I think there's huge potential there if we are in that sort of a market cycle. But I want to go over both scenarios with you guys. Basically, I can get rid of this box here, but we had a lower high, lower low here. So just given that information, I am pulling a fib something like this. Therefore, you can see my purple box here. So that's why I ended up getting so far just my first entry. I have another laddered entry up here, another laddered entry up here, another one up here. But if we end up hitting my 0.5 target here, I am going to take a quarter of my profits. I am going to remove the remaining orders at that point, because if we hit my first target, I have less faith in retrying this short here. Going to trade some alts. Yeah, this is just something that caught my eye. Adrian, actually, I see you in the chat right now. Shout out to you. You had mentioned to me Fartcoin today, and it's been very volatile. I even ended up catching this short just earlier. I'm out of this short at this point, but we got a perfect Stuber fib there for a lower high right at the 886 there. Ended up shorting that. But like I said, I ended up taking a new one here. So we're going to see what happens here. Honestly, I see potential for both scenarios. So let's hop over to Bitcoin, you guys. I want to hop over straight into the weekly, you guys, because a lot of people, like I said at the start there, a lot of people have been messaging me about the weekly chart. A lot of people have been saying, oh, your bearish sign with the RSI has been broken and all that sort of things. Guys, I want to be clear. This weekly chart is very interesting to me. I'm still not 100% sold on it, and I will explain why. No, I'm not changing my opinion at all here, and that's exactly why I still have my concerns, because nothing has quite changed yet. This is nice that we did end up getting a little bit of a liquidity grab, and then we ended up holding as support, right? So this does look like a little bit of a swing fail, a double bottom, whatever. We're holding this support. I can't argue that, you guys. Another thing about this is we are currently above my RSI trend line. Here is my problem with that, you guys. A lot of people are already celebrating that we broke that RSI trend line. If I map out where we actually closed that candle body, we did not break this line yet. You may think I'm being picky, whatever it's breaking out now. I don't care what it's doing right now because last night's weekly candle never actually closed above that line. I'm very picky when I play breakouts. I don't like playing breakouts until there's closes above because honestly, you guys, some of you guys may remember from streams a month or so ago that we had this exact same thing happen right here. And we also had it happen right here. There was at least twice on the downtrend where we were starting the week above this trend line here. And then as the week went, we just ended up getting rejected and it ended up closing back down below. So unfortunately, with how close that closed there, you can see it bang on my trend line pretty much. And this is a very accurate trend line. I'm very picky with diagonal trend lines, but those are perfect touch points. And just like where we closed the candle yesterday. So it's a little early to say for sure if it's broken. It's a nice sign. It is good to see that we have some strength and we're above it right now. It's just that unfortunately I got to wait about, basically exactly 6 days to see if we're going to close like this. If we close another candle like this, it truly does at that point look like we've broke that RSI trend line. And I think we'll get a nice little rally out of this. I don't know for sure if we'll see all-time highs before then. We'll still obviously have a lot of resistance on the way because we did break structure. You know, we broke down below this range. So it's very possible that if we get a bounce, it does just end up forming, let's say, a Stuber fib, a double top, something like that. But as far as the short term or even the midterm trend goes, though, if we close the candle like this, like I said, that's an excellent first sign for me that the bulls could in fact be back in the market. As it stands right now, it's just a little bit early to say yet. Also, just looking at straight up just the structure, you guys, like I said, yeah, you know, we held this support. Here's the thing, though. Technically, if we go by, for all you guys who love, looking at my Stuber fibs or even just how I micro analyze trends and stuff like that, here we have our low. We have set a lower low. This is now our lower high on the very micro trend here. I understand it's micro analyzing, whatever. That's how I draw Stuber fibs. That's basically the structure involved there. Here's the thing about this structure is that technically where we came up to is if I just pull this structure like any other time frame, we actually just came, bounced, kissed the 786 once again, and notice that that's where we are currently getting rejected today. So we're seeing some signs of strength. We are seeing at least the bears letting off a little bit, if nothing else, but just understand we still do have resistance. The fact that this little range here, the fact that it is so small, that fake out to the downside, the move to the upside after that may have already played out, right? Because, and this lines up with my 4 hour, right? If we want to zoom out a little bit and say that, this isn't real structure, it's too micro analyzed, whatever, let's hop over to the 4 hour and it's exactly this. So as it stands right now, we do still have resistance up ahead. Resistance is resistance until it's broken. Yes, I love seeing that we have some strength in the market, but understand that we are just, we're actually technically below resistance right now. The typical resistance levels that I like to play on any time frame is starting at the 786. Okay, so that's not saying we can't go higher. Basically, the 786 all the way up towards the 115 is how I look at a typical Fibonacci setup when I'm looking to play a range like this. And yeah, this is a big range, right? It basically runs from 86K up to 91K. It's a $5,000 range here. But understand that since this is a 4 hour, it is a fairly large range. And, it is what it is. As the structure right now, yeah, I wish it was a lot smaller of a range where we could have a nice tight entry, nice tight invalidation sort of a thing. But in reality, we are just now getting up to resistance, basically. So yeah, although this was a nice pump we had to the upside and everyone's celebrating the market recovering, we only recovered up to resistance so far. And I've been looking at this sort of structure. I mean, you guys see in the Telegram, for example, I'm always posting 786, 886 Stuber Fibonacci setups. whether it's the 5-minute or the 1-minute, this is the basic structure that I use, right? We have a lower low, another lower low. The lower high is the highest point between the two. I would pull a Fibonacci like that. And this is where I would be starting a position, and I'd be laddering in something like this, right? With invalidation above this. So as it stands, the structure is still technically to the downside. If that weekly chart that I've been talking about, like I said, in 6 days, if we close the candle and we have officially broken this line on a candle close, not just temporarily in a weekly candle, that would be a huge sign for me. Another excellent sign would be breaking structure on the 4-hour. It would at least be the start of something, right? And that's not to say we have to go straight to the moon from there. But just if we can invalidate this Stuber fib, at least we could start thinking about longing some kind of a pullback. Even if it ended up being a much deeper pullback, I would feel much different about the price. Honestly, like if we come back down to the same levels after setting a new high, breaking the lower high, that's where I can most likely, unless it just goes straight to the upside, which does happen sometimes, but typically speaking, after you get a structure break, you get some sort of a pullback. And that's the whole setup with the Stuber fib, for example, or using the Fibonacci retracement tool in general is looking for a pullback, right? I know a lot of people want to play the breakout because, hey, if we end up breaking this lower high, it's bullish, it's time to long. Well, it might be bullish, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's time to long, unless it ends up actually flipping this resistance to support and we start seeing a flip of that. We start to see a tighter range, even something like that, because we set a new higher high. Then we have some nice tight invalidation we can work with there. But as it stands right now, before I start seriously longing a bunch of pullbacks, I want to see some sort of a structure break first. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. Bitcoin, yeah, I mean, last stream I did here with you guys just a couple of days ago, that I ended up taking a bit of a short when I noticed that the 1-minute got rejected off that 4-hour 786. I was taking profits along the way. The rest of my position, I ended up closing it. I ended up taking basically the same short, just looking at we were getting rejected on the 4-hour fib again. Guys, all week I've been very vocal about this fib pocket and how I've been interested in shorting it. So basically every time we get up to it and we end up closing, I mean, on this chart, I don't have it, but I typically have an alert set at this level. And basically when we test this 4-hour resistance, I was just interested in looking, hey, if it gets rejected, even on the 1-minute, it's a sign that, there's a reaction there. And that's why I took another short there earlier today. But I am still looking at scalping more shorts as well. Something I could look for right now. What do we have here? Yeah, I was actually thinking that we have just on this micro uptrend here, just from where we bottomed here. Notice that we just have staircasing to the upside here. And here would have been our last high and higher high, meaning this was the higher low. And since we broke that, we can use this as a scalping pivotal point here. And if I pull up the AI charting tools, notice it has a lower high signal here, just as a little bit of confluence. So I'd be looking at something like that. So technically we're getting close to scalpable resistance territory, in my opinion, with some sort of a tight stop loss, right? If you wanted something a little safer, I mean, you could be looking for the entire range, right? Looking from where we've topped out basically since the last time we touched the 786, more so something like that. So the thing is, no matter how you look at it, just on all time frames, we're getting to all sorts of different resistance levels, right? Like if, let's say, this resistance ends up getting broken, we have resistance just slightly higher. And if we end up, because then here we would have this fib pull of the 786 to 886. So if we break this level, we have this level of resistance. We break that. That's where we start to get into the 4-hour resistance. So it's still just a little bit hard for me to go full on Moon Boy at this time. It will happen again, and honestly, like I said, with that weekly chart, it might be in 6 days. Sunday Sunday evening when we get that candle close, I may have to put my moon boots on again. We'll have to see. Or if we break that 4-hour structure first, right? If we end up, breaking, I wouldn't even really, from a bearish perspective, even if we break above this 886, I'll start to have I'll be considering that, hey, there's a lot of strength here because we haven't seen that since January, basically. But one other thing I would still be looking for would be if we get some sort of a swing fail along here. For those of you guys who have a tighter risk management, I suppose, less risk tolerance, or just, using higher leverage, for example, if you want to get, a tighter entry towards the invalidation, which, like I said, is around 91K, looking for, setting an alert at the top of this range. And then if it ends up getting rejected, you could look for shorting the retest of that level. And then you have an entry way up here and your stop loss is a lot tighter, right? So it really depends on the trader. Everyone trades different time frames. Everyone trades different setups. But those are just a couple of different ways that I like looking at this range right now. So it really depends what works for you, obviously. But oh, there it is. So I need to, so a quarter of this Fartcoin short triggered. I am currently sitting in a 22% profit on this guy. I just got to remove my other orders here. Sorry, one sec. So yeah, I guess hopefully those of you who were with me right from the start of the stream here, you can see that this is a live example of one of my favorite strategies, right? The infamous Stuber fibs. You're getting a live view of it happening, right? We had I don't know why that signal isn't showing up. One second. Let me just reload this chart. The AI charting tools with MDX ALGO, there it is. So like I said, I have a lower high signal here, lower low signal. So therefore I'm pulling the Fibonacci, something like that. Got my first entry, the 786. Unfortunately, never hit my other entries, but it is what it is. At least I really had no time where this position was stressful then, right? Basically went straight into profit. So I can't really complain about that either. It's just going to be a lot smaller than if I tagged my other entries as well. But yeah, I had a quarter of my position at the 0.5 fib, just like a typical Stuber fib setup. I have another quarter of it just front running the 214 fib slightly, and my stop loss is already at break even. So as always, I'm treating this position as a bit of a scalp at first. I'm looking to play the range first. And if we just absolutely drop off a cliff from there and the bears really grab onto the market here and start nuking us right through the floor here, then I have half my position still running, right? So I'm looking at it as a scalp, but being that there's so many potential things that could go against the market at this point in the charts, I'm just willing to hold on to part of my position in case it continues to run, right? And guys, this is all stuff that I'm teaching in my Telegram channel. Basically going over Stuber fibs. There's even some videos in there that are specifically about the structure, the foundation of how I trade these Stuber fibs and that sort of thing. There is a public one on the Financial Summits YouTube channel as well, but the private one is only for my Telegram followers. And that is more in depth, like I said, into the structure and that sort of stuff. But also just basically going over basic market structure, not really trading, news and fundamentals and that sort of thing. Just looking at a systematic trade setup where I can keep my emotions at bay. And yeah, if that's something that interests you, there is the QR code on the screen. There's also a link and steps in the description down below to gain access to that if that interests you. And just kind of getting more of my overall view of the market, basically. Also, my partners at BloFin are giving my followers a special promotion right now. special deposit bonus where you get up to, you get 20% cash back up to, what is it, up to $500 bonus or whatever it is there, running until April 21st. So that's another thing, guys. When you join BloFin using my link, we have access to great promotions that they'll give my followers, as well as quick answers if there's any problems, any issues, any customer support related things. We have access to, just quick access, right? So yeah, like I said, if that is all something that interests you, like I said, the bearish price action that's been happening since basically around Christmas, I mean, none of this should have came as a surprise to anybody who's in the Telegram channel, because I've been very vocal about this. And this had nothing to do with political bias. This had nothing to do with tariffs. I was predicting this kind of price action way before any of that was even happening. All just very basic market structure. So hope to see you guys there. There it is. So half of my position is closed now. Currently sitting in a 53% profit. That's a 20xer here. But yeah, that's a perfect example of, you know what, from here, it doesn't really matter what happens, right? This is just there was nothing crazy about the setup here. This was just basic market structure. I just had basically after, and well, here I did have an indicator that I was using as confluence. Like I said, the AI charting tools and MDX indicator here. Love using these as confluence for pulling these fibs. So since I had a low and a lower low, that means I could pull a bearish fib from the lower high. Typical bearish Stuber fib setup. First two profit levels hit. Textbook. What's the link to the Telegram channel? You can either scan the QR code on the screen, or in the description down below, there should be a link with the steps to join. I got to catch up on the chat here, you guys. I have, sorry, I've been ignoring you guys for a few minutes while I get out the majority of my analysis here. So I have a little time to catch up here. Going to play some gentle music while I catch up on the chat here as well. Chill. That sounds like good music for the time being. How are you all doing this fine evening? Adrian, you're lucky this worked out this short. I would have had to blame you. Holy hell. See a bunch of MDX ALGO legends in here. A lot of familiar faces in here, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me once again. Always appreciate having you guys here. Chaos, good to see you, Maz. The Stuber strat is great to use on Hyperliquid because of its scaling feature. I can scale in at multiple entries from a 786 all the way to that 115. It's a shame BloFin doesn't have that feature. That's interesting. The auto scaling feature, that is handy. So you've been using that, Maz, with the Stuber strategy? Yeah, Adrian, good call. Remember, guys, that there is, Good Friday this weekend, so the Easter holiday. So the market closes on Thursday. Does it close early on Thursday? I'm actually not sure. This seems like a lot of work to basically split hairs. If you're talking about playing the smaller ranges, that's what scalping is. And the thing is, all time frames basically structure works the same, right? So if you don't want to play it on a small 5-minute swing, for example, then you can do it on a 4-hour, for example, right? But that being said, like I said, I mean, this, anytime I can make over 50% in a matter of basically 10 minutes, I'm okay with that. That feels very worth it for a very predictable, easy profit. I don't mind that. Yeah, I notice. Good to see that a couple people in the chat here. A lot of people loving the Stuber strategy. Love to see it. Obviously, guys, it takes time to start noticing them very quickly, right? Yeah, I see them all the time, and sometimes I'm looking at very small ranges and that sort of thing. It's just because my eye is drawn to them, honestly. It just, once you start to see them, you just can't unsee them. You start to see them in your everyday life. You see them out in nature. You see them in buildings, trees, people. You see them everywhere. 4 a.m. Holy. Well, I appreciate you guys being here in the middle of the night or early morning, whatever you want to look at it as. Has BTC broken the downward channel, or are people cherry picking? I guess it depends. Are you talking about the structure itself, or are you talking about the RSI? The RSI, I just went over that. It's very close, but I'm very, very picky with my trend lines. And someone might say I'm cherry picking because I'm just hanging on to my bearish bias, but you can see it right here. I mean, very far zoomed in here, and this is pretty accurate. This one never even quite touched. Well, actually it did at one point in the week, but then it ended up dumping too quickly. And yeah, we basically closed right below it. So I don't consider the RSI downtrend broken. As far as just a naked chart, no indicators. I think it did, but I think it was a bit of a fake out. Let me actually duplicate my 4 hour. I'm going to remove all my drawings. And let's just see what we got on the 4 hour. I know not everyone likes diagonal trend lines. See, I would say that we broke this trend line. This is going to be me being very picky again. It really depends what your backtested strategy is. This isn't how I backtest trend lines, because I would have considered this a fake out and I would have shorted this, if anything, because we got that swing fail above that, right? Whereas now that we've broken, since we got that swing fail, I actually like to adjust my trend lines. Not everybody does, and a lot of people like to well, yeah, just a lot of people don't like to move their trend lines, or a lot of people like to use the average touch points, whatever. I like to use exact touch points, and if there's swing fails, I like to then adjust my trend lines. And just like what we have right here, technically, after adjusting that, we're getting another one of those where we're struggling with that resistance again. So I don't know. It's a messy one on a diagonal trend line there. Unless you have a back tested strategy and it fits your criteria, then you know what? Who am I to say it won't work out? It's just maybe me being a little bit picky. If I'm willing to shift my entire outlook on this market cycle, I need something that's fairly obvious. I don't want something that I'm kind of hoping for, because you know what? Realistically, like, I can't wait to be a moon boy again. I can't wait till shit just starts popping off again. Had a random meme coin the other day pump like 150x or something, but it got hammered before that so much that, it still wasn't anything crazy. But, it was fun to see that kind of life coming into the market. And I can't wait for another bull market. I can't wait for another parabolic run. I have my concerns. That's the thing, you guys. Like, I love Bitcoin. I love crypto. I use it every day. I trade it every day. I'm very bullish on it, but that's why I'm okay with it going down if that's going to be what happens. This monthly chart, I still have huge concerns with this monthly chart. There is 4 bear market signals on this chart right now. With the bearish cross on the momentum indicator, the wave master, that's a bearish cross every time it's happened so far on the monthly. Not to say that it has to happen again, but so far that has been market reversal warnings. Also, the lower reversal warning here, the lower W here, we've only ever seen that once. I personally like that it just changed directions, looking for a potential shift to the downside, being that we all of a sudden got a lower reversal warning. The fact that it's a double whammy like this only strengthens my opinion that it could be a full-on reversal. The only other time that's happened was back here in 2014, and that led to a bear market. So that's 2 pretty big warnings there. The other one, let's just go all indicators aside, just basic market structure. We lost this order block, and that's a huge concern for me on the monthly, because the only other times this has happened in Bitcoin's history, these 5 times here so far, the last 4 times that a block like this has broken, it has been a massive move continuation, basically, whenever we get a deviation of those boxes. So right now, I mean, even if Bitcoin bounces from here, this box, we already tested it once as a support resist flip, right? We perfectly came back up into this box and got rejected. This time, it makes a lot of sense that we could come up a little bit higher and still get rejected. Not saying we have to. If we end up breaking and reclaiming this box, well, then, guys, that's just another huge green light for me that I would consider being quite bullish at that point again. It's just that I like to trade charts that are here right now. I don't like to trade charts that I think are going to be there in a few weeks or months, right? So as it stands, until some structure really changes, I can't really get my hopium going too much quite yet. But again, we're close. Like, that's the thing, guys. I don't want to sound too pessimistic, because like I said, it may be as quickly as basically 6 days from now, right? I think the next weekly candle close is going to be quite telling. I think we are very much, like the title suggests, a make or break point for Bitcoin, because with the RSI doing what it's doing, again, yes, it's above my trend line right now, but it hasn't closed above. The close was actually slightly below, right below. And on top of that, like I said, just the basic structure here, technically lower low. If this was a 5-minute, I'd be looking at something like this. But again, if that gets invalidated, if we end up breaking this, at that point, I can start looking for long in pullbacks. I'll be looking for bullish Stuber fibs rather than bearish ones. I'm okay with that too, because really, you guys, at the end of the day, it's not so much that I'm bearish as a whole. Like I said, I love crypto. It's just that I'm more of a trader than an investor. I have my investments, I have my spot holdings, but especially how I look at things on a channel and from a technical analysis point of view, I'm more so looking at this as a trader, and it still makes sense for me to be looking at resistance on a downtrend as sell levels until that ends up breaking. When that trend breaks, then I can start looking at pullbacks to long again. If I miss a little bit, if the market does something like this, and people say that Stu got wrecked, Stu missed the bull market because he was bearish right here. Okay, well, if I end up getting bullish right here at the same level with an actual confirmation, rather than trying to catch a knife the entire way down, I'm okay with that few percent that I would end up missing. And honestly, I wouldn't even end up missing, because like I said, I still have most of my spot bags. So it's really, I'm just looking at this bearishly as far as a trader's point of view. I want to make that very clear, because a lot of people take it very personal that I'm bearish and think that I hate crypto or that I don't understand it or whatever. It's nothing like that, guys. I'm just looking at this as from a trader's point of view. Um, do I ever market buy or sell or always limit orders? It really depends. Sometimes when I'm seeing things last minute, because that does happen on the 1 minute quite a bit, then I just end up doing even if it's a small market buy or sell, and then doing a limit for the rest just to make sure I get something in. But I try and avoid market buys and market sells because the fees are definitely higher. Yeah, JD, as far as Discord, I'm in the MDX ALGO Discord. And then as far as Telegram, I have my own Telegram channel here through Financial Summit. And that is accessed through scanning the QR code or clicking the link and following the steps in the description down below. And just kind of going over just all of my personal opinions about the market, just my overall feel for the market, and just looking at Stuber fibs and all that sort of stuff. Like I said, BloFin currently giving my followers a special deposit promotion there, so take advantage of that. What's the lowest leverage that I would suggest for scalping? Totally depends on the person. Honestly, it really comes down to the position size, right? Because really at the end of the day, leverage, using high leverage, if you understand position sizing, I actually have a video of that as well, guys, on the Financial Summit's YouTube channel. I did recently do a little bit of a BloFin tutorial talking about leverage types, order types, risk management, that sort of stuff. At the end of the day, the leverage amount doesn't necessarily matter. What matters is understanding if the trade works against you, what is worst case scenario? How much margin are you actually going to lose on your trade? That's the part that matters the most, in my opinion, anyways. And it totally depends what you're trading, right? Like I scalp Bitcoin with a lot higher leverage than I scalp altcoins with. For example, if I'm using like 69x on Bitcoin, I'm probably using like 20 or even 10x on altcoins. And honestly, that's still a lot for most people. I'm not even suggesting most people use that much leverage. Realistically, most people should probably use less. But being I understand my risk management side, I'm familiar with, position sizing that I'm comfortable with and that sort of thing. So if I feel like, freeing up a bunch of margin, then I don't mind using higher leverage, but I'm still going to be taking into consideration what my overall position size is, right? Fartcoin getting a little bit of a bounce. I'm just going to point this out. Where we got a bounce here, just because, like I said, once you see it, you start to see it more and more. I'm not interested in playing the longs right now, but just notice where we ended up finding support there, right? Right at the 786. Technically, there was a bullish fib here, not using these lower high and lower low signals, but just looking at basic market structure, even right here, when we broke this, at that point, we could basically start pulling a Fibonacci after we break that structure. So we broke a micro downtrend there. That's where I can start pulling a fib and basically just pulling along with this range until we end up getting that pullback. And look, eventually we do get that test of the 786. And yeah, almost immediately within a few minutes, it hit the first target. And now it looks like it's working its way towards the second target. Hard to say if it's going to hit or not. But yeah, as far as scalping goes, I love scalping off those levels as long as there's the proper structure break backing it up, right? A lot of people who trade these incorrectly often, they might not be looking at a structure break followed by that pullback, right? If they're just pulling a random range that they think is a range, but there's been no structure break verifying that there could be a continuation of that setup, it's less likely to play out is all. Bitcoin got very close to that 786, and then it would have hit those two targets, but it never quite got up there. Not so sure if it's going to respect it if it tries to go up there again. What are some indicators looking like? Trendmaster, we do have a buy signal. Technically, it's a little bit lower, just like we have a lower sell signal. That's a little bit of a warning that it might not pump here, but yeah, kind of mixed signals right now on the 1 minute, or this is the 5 minute, sorry. But again, guys, basically at the end of the day, we are still just below our 4-hour resistance. I've been very vocal about this level all week. I still have my concerns about that, right? The first two things that are going to happen for me to getting tongue-tied here. The first two things that are going to happen that will make me flip my opinion and make me at least start considering the possibility that this market cycle is going to recover. Like I said, I need this 4-hour structure broken, or I at least need this weekly RSI to end up breaking. And although it does look broken right now, like I said, we need this candle body to actually close. So anyways, guys, I think that's about all I wanted to go over today. So thank you all so much for being here with me today. Hopefully you guys found this stream useful. If so, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss these streams. And as I mentioned, if you want access to my private Telegram channel where I share some of my theories, some of my trade setup ideas, and just my overall thoughts on the market in general, there is a link down below with the steps to join in the description, as well as the QR code on the screen in front of you. With that, I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Peace.